Hey fellow witches and wizards, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're stepping into the enchanted halls of Hogwarts to explore one of the most fascinating aspects of magical castle life. The living portraits that grace every wall, from gossiping Victorian wizards to brave knights in shining armor. These magical paintings hold centuries of secrets, stories, and wisdom, so grab your wands and let's discover the incredible world of Hogwarts' enchanted portraits. Before we meet our portrait inhabitants, let's understand what makes these paintings so special. Unlike Muggle portraits that capture a single moment in time, magical portraits are living, breathing representations of their subjects. When a witch or wizard sits for a magical portrait, they leave behind not just their image, but their personality, memories, and even their ability to think and reason. These aren't just pretty pictures. They're sophisticated magical constructs that can hold conversations, offer advice, and even travel between other portraits of themselves throughout the wizarding world. The magic is so advanced that the portraits maintain the subject's mannerisms, speech patterns, and knowledge they possessed during their lifetime. But here's the fascinating part. While they retain the subject's personality and memories, they're not the actual person. They're more like an echo, a magical impression left behind. This is why they can't learn entirely new information or develop beyond what the original subject knew. Let's start our portrait tour with perhaps the most famous resident of Hogwarts walls, the Fat Lady. This unnamed but beloved portrait serves as the guardian of Gryffindor Tower, and she takes her job very seriously indeed. Every Gryffindor student knows the drill. Approach the portrait hole, give the password, and hope the Fat Lady is in a good mood. She's known for her theatrical personality, her love of singing, and her occasional tendency to abandon her post for a chat with other portraits. The Fat Lady has quite the personality. She's been known to refuse entry to students who've forgotten the password, regardless of how much they plead. She's also fond of singing, though her voice has been described as rather enthusiastic. During the Christmas holidays, she's been spotted caroling with other portraits throughout the castle. But the Fat Lady proved her courage during Sirius Black's break-in attempt. When he couldn't provide the password and became aggressive, she fled her frame. The first time in Hogwarts history that a portrait guardian had abandoned their post due to fear. Her slashed portrait became a symbol of the very real danger that had entered the castle. Speaking of courage, let's talk about Sir Cadogan, the knight who temporarily replaced the Fat Lady as Gryffindor's guardian. This pint-sized knight on his fat pony is perhaps the most enthusiastic portrait in all of Hogwarts, and that's saying something. Sir Cadogan lived during the medieval period and was known for his incredible bravery. Some might say reckless bravery. He once challenged the Weasley twins to a duel, offered to help students with their love lives, and constantly changed the Gryffindor password to increasingly ridiculous phrases. The students learned to dread his password changes. One day it might be Odds Bodikins, the next Scurvy, and then Caterwauling Cat. He had a particular fondness for Shakespearean insults and medieval expressions that left many students locked out of their own common room. But Sir Cadogan's enthusiasm proved to be his downfall as a guardian. His eagerness to help anyone who seemed to know a password, even if it wasn't the current one, made him a security risk. When Sirius Black managed to get past him using a list of passwords that Neville had written down, Sir Cadogan was promptly removed from his position. He took it rather well, actually, probably seeing it as just another adventure. Now, let's enter the most prestigious portrait gallery in all of Hogwarts, the Headmaster's Office. This circular room houses the portraits of every witch and wizard who has served as head of Hogwarts, creating a council of wisdom that spans centuries. These portraits serve a unique function. Unlike other magical paintings, the Headmaster and Headmistress portraits have a special duty. They're bound to help the current head of Hogwarts and to protect the school's best interests. They can't leave the castle grounds, but they can travel between their portraits in the office and others throughout the school. Each portrait retains the wisdom, knowledge, and personality of the headmaster or headmistress they represent. They can offer advice based on their experiences, share historical knowledge about the school, and even help solve problems that require a historical perspective. These portraits witnessed the founding of Hogwarts, the rise and fall of dark wizards, to wizarding wars, and countless generations of students, their living libraries of magical education and school management, making them invaluable resources for any sitting headmaster. Among the headmaster portraits, none is more significant than that of Albus. His portrait appeared in the office immediately after his death, as is tradition for all Hogwarts heads, but his portrait carries special importance. Dumbledore's portrait retained his incredible wisdom, his deep understanding of magic, and his ability to see the bigger picture. He was able to guide Harry Potter through crucial information about Horcruxes and Voldemort's plans, proving that even in death, his protection of the wizarding world continued. What makes Dumbledore's portrait particularly fascinating is how it demonstrates the limitations of magical portraits. While he retained his personality and memories, up until his death, he couldn't learn new information or grow beyond what he knew in life. This is why he couldn't tell Harry everything. He was limited to the knowledge he possessed when he died. The portrait also showed Dumbledore's characteristic tendency to withhold information until the right moment. Even as a portrait, he maintained his belief that people should discover certain truths for themselves, leading to some frustrating but ultimately wise interactions with Harry. One of the most controversial portraits in the Headmaster's Office belongs to Severus Snape. Despite his short tenure as headmaster and the circumstances of his appointment, Snape's portrait appeared after his death, recognizing his ultimate sacrifice and true loyalty. Snape's portrait represents one of the most complex figures in Hogwarts history. As a portrait, he retained his sharp wit, his vast knowledge of magic, and his complicated relationship with his own past. The portrait served as a reminder that heroism comes in many forms, and that the full story of a person's life isn't always immediately apparent. What's particularly interesting about Snape's portrait is how it reflects his true nature. Freed from the necessity of maintaining his cover as a spy, the portrait could express the loyalty and protection he felt for Harry and the school. It's a fascinating study in how our true selves might be revealed when we're no longer constrained by circumstance. While we don't encounter them directly in the main series, the portraits of the 4 Hogwarts founders, Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin, are legendary figures in the castle's portrait community. These portraits would contain the wisdom and knowledge of the greatest witches and wizards of their age. Imagine the conversations they might have, debates about house values, discussions about magical education, and perhaps even arguments about the direction the school should take. The founders' portraits would be the ultimate historical resource, containing first-hand knowledge about the establishment of Hogwarts, the original magic that protects the castle, and the true intentions behind the house system. They would have witnessed the school's growth, from a small sanctuary for magical education to the premier wizarding school in Britain. While we can only imagine their conversations, we know from other portraits that these magical paintings maintain the relationships they had in life. The founders' portraits would likely continue their eternal debate about the best way to educate young witches and wizards, each advocating for their house's values while working together for the good of the school. Not all portraits are as benevolent as those at Hogwarts. The Black family home at Grimmauld Place houses some of the most unpleasant portraits in the wizarding world, with Mrs. Black's portrait being the most notorious. Mrs. Black's portrait is permanently stuck to the wall of the family home, shrieking abuse at anyone who dares to enter. Her portrait retained all of her prejudices, her pureblood mania, and her talent for creative insults. Unlike the helpful portraits of Hogwarts, she serves as a reminder of the darker aspects of wizarding society. The family tried to remove her portrait, but she had magically sealed it to the wall, making it impossible to take down. This demonstrates another aspect of magical portraits. They can be incredibly difficult to destroy or remove, especially when the subject had strong magical abilities in life. Mrs. Black's portrait also shows how magical portraits can become prisons for outdated and harmful ideologies. Unlike living people who can grow and change, portraits are frozen in their beliefs and attitudes, making them potentially dangerous repositories of old prejudices. One fascinating aspect of magical portraits is their ability to travel, not just between different portraits of themselves, but sometimes even appearing in unexpected places. The portraits have their own social network, gossiping and sharing information across the wizarding world. Portraits can visit other portraits throughout the wizarding world, which is how news and gossip spread so quickly through the magical community. They can step out of their frames and into others, making them an informal but efficient communication network. This mobility also means that portraits can serve as messengers and informants. During times of crisis, they can quickly spread warnings or coordinate responses across multiple locations. It's like having a magical internet made entirely of painted paper. But this mobility also raises questions about privacy and security. Portraits can observe and report on activities in the buildings they inhabit, making them potentially valuable sources of intelligence or dangerous security risks, depending on their loyalties. While not technically a portrait, the Sorting Hat deserves mention as perhaps the most famous magical object with a personality at heart. Like portraits, the hat contains the thoughts and wisdom of its creators, the four founders of Hogwarts. The Sorting Hat was created by the four founders, and imbued with their combined wisdom and knowledge, it can see into the minds and hearts of students, understanding their true nature and potential in ways that even they might not realize. What makes the Sorting Hat particularly fascinating is that it contains aspects of all four founders, allowing it to make impartial decisions about which house each student should join. It's like having a committee of the greatest magical educators in history, making a collective decision about each student's future. The hat also serves as a historical archive, containing memories of every student it has ever sorted. It has witnessed the entire history of Hogwarts through the eyes of its students, making it perhaps the most complete record of the school's social and academic development. Living alongside magical portraits requires a certain etiquette. These aren't just decorations. They're personalities with feelings, opinions, and social relationships. Students quickly learn the do's and don'ts of portrait interaction. Portraits appreciate politeness and respect. Just like living people, they can be helpful allies if treated well, but they can also be stubborn and uncooperative if offended. Many students have found themselves locked out of their common rooms after being rude to their portrait guardian. The portraits also have relationships with each other, forming friendships, rivalries, and even romantic connections. They gossip, argue, and support each other just like any community. Some portraits are popular social centers, while others prefer solitude. Portrait drama is apparently quite common at Hogwarts. Portraits can hold grudges, spread rumors, and even gang up on portraits they don't like. It's like having a soap opera playing out on the walls of the castle. The deepest mystery of magical portraits lies in how they capture and preserve human consciousness. How does a painting contain not just appearance, but personality, memory, and the ability to think and reason? The magic behind portraits touches on some of the most profound questions in the wizarding world. What makes a person who they are? How much of our identity is tied to our memories and experiences? Can consciousness exist independently of the physical body? Portraits suggest that personality and memory can be preserved through magic, but they also show the limitations of this preservation. They can't grow or change beyond what they were in life, making them both immortal and trapped in their final state of being. In some ways, portraits represent the wizarding world's approach to mortality and legacy. They offer a form of immortality, but one that comes with significant limitations. They can preserve wisdom and personality, but not the ability to continue growing and experiencing new things. As we've seen throughout our exploration, portrait magic represents one of the most sophisticated forms of magical preservation in the wizarding world. But what might the future hold for this ancient art? The portraits at Hogwarts represent centuries of magical development, each one a masterpiece of personality preservation. As magical techniques advance, we might see even more sophisticated forms of portrait magic, perhaps ones that can learn and grow beyond their original limitations. But perhaps the greatest value of portraits isn't in their potential for advancement, but in their role as guardians of history and wisdom. They preserve not just individual personalities, but entire eras of magical knowledge and experience. Every portrait at Hogwarts is a window into the past, a conversation with history, and a reminder that the wisdom of previous generations can continue to guide and protect future ones. Their living libraries, eternal counselors, and faithful guardians all rolled into one. So there you have it, the incredible world of Hogwarts enchanted portraits, from the theatrical fat lady to the wise headmaster portraits, from the enthusiastic Sir Cadogan to the complex legacy of figures like Snape and Dumbledore. These magical paintings are far more than decoration. They're the eternal residents of Hogwarts, the keepers of its history, and the guardians of its wisdom. They remind us that in the magical world, death is not the end of influence or the end of caring. The portraits continue to guide, protect, and sometimes annoy the living, ensuring that the wisdom of the past is never truly lost. What's your favorite Hogwarts portrait? Do you think you'd want your own magical portrait someday? And what would you want to be remembered for if your personality was preserved in a painting? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed our journey through Hogwarts halls. Subscribe for more deep dives into the magical world, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest magical explorations. Until next time, keep the magic alive, and remember, the walls have ears, and at Hogwarts, they also have person. Thanks for watching, and may your own portrait someday grace the walls of greatness.